financial dot customer where custody equal to 10. This is the query I'm firing. Okay, here you can see some steps, right? Or rather than customer ID, let me keep where age equal to 10. You can see some steps here, right? Explanation with the title, and you are seeing some steps, some 4 steps you are seeing, right?
Yeah.
Let me paste it here so that you can see in a bigger font. Yeah. So you can see what are the tables you are accessing, and for each step you are seeing the time. These are the number of rows, and this is the time, and total this is the time. Like this, you are seeing some time, right?
Okay.
And what is the level of locking it is applying, what tables it is accessing, and how it is processing. You can see with the number, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. Even in terms of the last step, I am sending an end transaction so that all the data is sent back to the user. I am done with my work and I am giving out the result to the user. That is also given as a step. If you see here, this is how the parsing engine will send the instructions. These are the step-by-step instructions that were sent out by the parsing engine to the AMP. Even on saying the end transaction, on seeing this only, it will know like, okay, I'm done with my work. Because this is the last step that parsing engine is sending. It is telling like, it is telling the AMP that whatever the work you have done till now is completed, and whatever the work you have done, send it back to the user. That's what the instruction is. Like that, it will sequence every activity in a simpler steps. Okay, this is the thing, the set of instructions. Will it call it as the execution plan in Teradata, or you can also call it as explain plan.
Okay.
Okay, so on what basis it is done, it is prepared, we have discussed in last session. It is prepared based on the data demographics, right?
Okay. Yeah.
It is prepared, these steps are prepared based on the data demographics. So what are the data demographics? Size of the table, indexes on the table, number of records, how many unique records are there, how many duplicates are there in the index record. All these are called as data demographics. Okay, so who is going to prepare the explain plan? Explain plan is going to be prepared by the optimizer. I told you, right, we have 3 phases in parsing engine. One is parsing, second is optimizing, third is going to be dispatching. In parsing phase, it has done the syntactical analysis as well as the accessibility check of the particular table which you have mentioned in the query, right? After that, based on the demographics, the optimizer has prepared the explain plan, and this prepared explain plan will be delivered to the apps. The dispatcher is the one. In the dispatch phase, the dispatcher will send out the explain plan to all the AMPs in the system through this bynet. Okay, through this bynet. So this bynet has the capability of the communication, whether that particular explain plan should be sent to only 1 AMP in the system, or 2 AMPs in the system, or all the AMPs in the system. Okay. So if it is need to be sent to 1 AMP in the system, it's a unicast. Like we have some network protocols, right? Like unicast, multicast, broadcast, right? So how this is decided, whether to send the message only to 1 AMP in the system, or to a set of AMPs in the system, or to all the AMPs in the system? How it will be decided? On what factor that this particular decision will depend on means, It's the factor that is depend on how you have figured out your query. Suppose if you are using the indexed columns in your where clause, then it will be only delivered to a certain AMP or set of AMPs, but not to all the AMPs in the system. So the way the broadcasting or unicasting or multicasting will be done based on the query you have written. Okay. Let's say if you are saying select star from employee table, what does it mean? I'm not giving out any where clause. I'm saying select star from customer. So what does it mean? It means that I'm going to retrieve all the data from this table, right? If I'm saying all the data from this table means it's going to retrieve all the data from these AMPs. Okay. So it's going to be all the data means the way how to retrieve all the data from the AMPs means the instruction should be sent out to all the AMPs. In that case, it's going to be a broadcast message. Like that, the message or the instructions will be sent to the AMPs based on unicast, multicast, or broadcast. Okay. So all the AMPs in the system are connected to vdisk. Okay. So on this vdisk, AMPs will work only on their allocated portion of the vdisk. Okay. AMPs will work only on their allocated portion of vdisk. That's what we have discussed, like shared nothing architecture on previous session, right? So how the data is going to be distributed? Before going into that, I'll just show you another slide. This is how the system is going to look at. If you look at in the front end of the system, the nodes and PEs will be collected into a component called node, and these are connected to some cylindrical structures called as disk and disk, which are there on the disk array controller. Have you ever been to the old theaters? Have you ever seen some bucket kind of structure, buckets hanging on a stand near the cinema theater screen? Have you ever observed that? Fire buckets near to the screen?
Yeah.
Filled with sand, right? There
Correct.
nowadays we are having these fire extinguishers, but what was they were not existing in the olden days, right? So you used to see some red color stand with buckets hanging them with filled with sand written as fire, right? So similarly, like that, how they were hanging on the stand, the fire buckets were hanging on the stand. Like that, the hard disks will be hanging on this disk array controller, inside the disk array controller on a stand kind of thing. Whatever the set of disks allocated to each of the AMP were called as V disks. There will be some disk stripping logic based on your RAID settings, whether it can be RAID 1 or it can be RAID 5. Depending on the site, Teradata will configure the RAID setting. Based on that, the RAID stripping means writing the data onto the disk will happen. Okay. So here we'll go for a next level of step. You are seeing 8 nodes in your Teradata system, right? And you are in total you are seeing total 6 disk array controllers, right? 8 nodes connected to 6 disk array controllers. But if you observe here, 4 nodes connected to one set of disk array controller and another 4 nodes connected to another set of disk array controllers, right? So whatever be the nodes that were sharing same set of disk array controllers are grouped to a thing called click. Whatever be the set of disk array controllers that are connected to a same set of disk array controllers is called as a click. Why the nodes are grouped to a click is the question. What is the necessity of grouping the nodes into a click? Whenever you are having more number of nodes, why it is grouped to a click. Nodes, or it can be Ps or amps, anything are the electronic components, right? If you buy a bulb from a shop, what could be the guarantee he will be giving it to you? As I have tested here, it's working fine. So I am not bounded for any guarantee. Even if it is gone after 5 minutes also, I am not liable for that. That's what the message you'll be getting from shopkeeper, right? Right or wrong? So being an electrical component, the
Correct.
amps or PEs or the nodes may have the issue, right? They are not meant for running for years and years, right? They too will have some issues internally, right? So what will happen in that case? If an amp has gone offline, means an amp has suddenly stopped working today. So what will happen? If an amp stops working, whatever be the portion of the VDisk that it is managing, okay, whatever be the portion of the VDisk it is managing, it will become inaccessible. So whatever be the table you are trying to access, whatever be the portion of the data that was stored on the VDisk that was managed by AMP, which is offline, is not going to be available. That portion of data you can't be able to retrieve. That is the problem. So what's going to happen means there are some data security mechanisms which we'll discuss. That is the resolution for this. If you have a data protection available at particular table level, then you can able to access the data even if the AMP is offline. Okay, even if the AMP is offline, you can able to access the data comfortably if you have a data protection available. Okay, if AMP is offline, if I have data protection available, I will be able to access. What happens if my node is offline? Right? If AMP is offline, I am able to manage it to retrieve from the data protection mechanism using data protection mechanism. If enabled, that also if enabled. So what happen if my node is offline? Node is nothing but if I am saying a node, there will be some group of amps and Ps in it. If node itself is down, who is going to manage this? If a boss is not available, if there is no boss for or a manager for a project, who is going to manage that particular project? Who is going to give out the blueprint? Who is going to deliver out the things to the customer, right? Similarly, if a node is offline, who is going to manage the Ps and amps in the system? Is the question, right? So here there could be two cases. Okay, if you have a standby node, what is a standby node? If you have a standby node, that standby node will take over the control of the amps and Ps that were there in the offline node. So before discussing that, what is a standby node is the question, right? So what is the standby node means? If you will have a team of 11 members in the cricket, a player is injured, so there will be a bench player who will come and do the fielding on behalf of him, right? The reserved player in the pool, right? So he will come into the field and he will start acting on behalf of him. Similarly, you'll be having some standby nodes in the click if you have that setup. Okay, if you have that setup and if you have a standby node available, if a node is offline, let's say this particular node has gone offline and this is the standby node configured in my system. If this node is offline, whatever with the amps and Ps in this particular system will migrate to this particular standby node. This standby node will become an active one, and this node which is offline will be repaired by the Teradata team, and it will now start acting as a standby. So all these three are there, and this one will act as standby. I don't have that much budget, so I don't have that capacity to maintain a standby node. I don't have that particular amount of budget to maintain, saying that I don't want to keep an ideal node. I don't want to have a standby. In that case, what is going to happen? Let's say I have all nodes, 4 nodes in the same click as an active node, active system. I don't have a standby configured. In that particular case, if this node has gone offline, so what will happen? Whatever be the nodes, whatever be the Ps and amps in this that are managed by this node will be migrated to the rest of the nodes in the same click. Okay, if this node is offline, the amps and Ps in this click will be migrated to the other nodes in the click. Means taking a temporary charge of the Ps and amps in this particular node. The charge will be taken care by, or the controlling will be shared by the rest of the nodes in the same click. Rajesh, you are getting right?
Yeah, understood.
So it's just like if in case of AP example, where in case of ND Tiwari time, Tiwari has been dismissed. So what was done? A temporary governor, the governor from Tamil Nadu will look after the affairs of the AP state also, right? A special in charge kind of thing. Okay. If the manager is not available, if other project manager will look after the project on a temporary basis. What will happen? It will become an additional burden on him along with the existing work, right? So here also the same. Whatever with the work that was done by the 4 nodes earlier, it will be now done by the 3 nodes in the click. So there could be a slight degrade in performance. Okay, because they need to look after the work that was assigned to them. Along with that, they need to manage the Ps and amps that were migrated to them or that were shared among them because of the offline node. Okay, so in case of any migrations or in case of any standby, they will be migrating or they will be going for the standby that was there in the same click but not in the different click. Okay, if you are maintaining a standby, you need to have a standby for every click. Not you don't have the option of maintaining the standby for one click and not having a standby for other click. You need to maintain it for every click. So in that, how you will say the configuration means, if you have 2 clicks and if you have 8 nodes and out of those 6 are active and 2 are standby, 3 plus 1, 3 plus 1, total 6 plus 2, you can say. If anyone asks about the configuration of your system means, you can say it as 6 plus 2 means 6 active nodes and 2 standby nodes. Okay, 6, how come they are 6 means you have 2 clicks, right? That is how you are saying 6 active nodes and 2 standby nodes. So what is the other advantage of having a standby? Yeah, go ahead.
So can the standby nodes be on either of the clicks, or it should be like let's say in case of the click 0, right?
Yeah.
So I have 4, and in
Okay.
click 1 I have 4, right? So can I make all the all the 4 nodes as active in click 0 and make 2 as a standby in click 1, or
No,
is it
it
like it
can't
should
be
be in the rest?
possible. I told you, right? If you have a standby, you need to have the standby for each of the click. Means
Oh, okay,
out
okay,
of these 4 nodes in the click 0, if you want 2
okay,
standby and 2 active, you can keep it. For each node, you have a standby node, or you can
oh,
have
okay,
3 plus 1 in the same click.
okay.
But you
But
can't
it,
say like 4 active in click 0 and 2 standby in click 1. It can't be possible.
okay, so for each click there has to be a, I mean, if it
Yes,
is there, it has to be there in each click
yes,
only. Okay,
exactly.
yeah,
And
got it,
one
okay.
more thing is, you don't have the standby, right? So
Uh-huh,
whatever the node that was offline, the amps and Ps were getting managed by the rest of the nodes in the system in the same click,
correct,
right?
correct,
Once
correct.
this particular thing is happened, once whatever the node that was offline has been repaired by the Teradata system, Teradata Corp people. Okay. Now in
Uh-huh,
order to bring it to the active configuration, so when whatever be the nodes, Ps and amps that were there under the offline amp, in order to migrate to the rest of the nodes in the click, the system will undergo a restart.
oh,
The
okay,
system
okay.
will undergo a restart. Once the whatever with the node that was repaired, in order to bring it to the configuration again, means why it is another time going for a restart means whatever with the Ps and amps that were getting managed by the other amps need to again revert back into this active amp which is repaired, right? So it will
Okay.
again go for a restart. So it is undergoing a restart for 2 times, right? Total it
What
is,
is the first time?
what is the,
I mean, so this after it becomes proper, it gets restarted. So even when it fails, it has to go undergo a restart or
yes,
something.
yes, it
Okay,
has to
okay,
go restart because the Ps and amps need to be migrated to the rest of the nodes, right? So it
okay,
is
okay,
getting restarted 2 times
okay,
if you are not having a standby.
okay.
If you
And
have a standby, it will
okay,
be restarted only once. Whatever be the Ps and nodes that were there in this AMP on the offline node, right? They will, in order to migrate them to the standby node, it will get restart. So for the
okay,
second time, whenever the AMP node is repaired and started working as an active, it doesn't need to have a restart because it is now acting as a standby,
okay,
right?
okay. Yeah,
Standby
correct.
node will not have any amps and Ps. It is a dummy node. It will take charge of the nodes, amps, and PS in case of downtime, node down situation only. So you are going for restart only once
Okay.
in case of having a standby. So for the sake of saving the restart, are we doing are we maintaining the standby means not only for the restart. You are not you'll not feel the
Performance
performance
over.
issue. That is
Correct.
the main thing. In case of not having a standby, there is some extra amount of pressure on the existing nodes.
Correct.
That pressure or that performance issue is not going to happen in case of a standby. In terms of Teradata system, the restart is the very costliest thing
Okay. Okay.
because whatever be the records or whatever be the jobs that were running will all will get aborted.
Yeah, that's what I was about to ask you. So in let's say that the node which was failing has
Okay,
has been executing some long SQLs,
okay.
and it is still not completed, but it has for some reason it has failed. So in that case, what will happen?
Can you come again? Actually, your
Yeah.
voice is coming like it's something like coming like as an echo.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
So what I'm asking is, let's say the node one, okay, so
Okay.
was executing a long query,
Okay.
like a select query. It was running for like
See,
some period.
it's not one thing. Node one
Mhm.
is not going to execute. It's going to execute on all the 8 nodes.
Oh,
It's a
okay.
query cannot be handled by a single node or single PE. Okay. It will be it will be executed on the entire system. Yes, there is a possibility like it will be executed by only 1 amp in the system if you are using the index. I'll tell you that whenever we come into the primary index. After this, we are going to discuss about primary index. At that time, we will come to know.
Okay,
In that
okay.
particular point of time only, it will be executed only 1 amp in the system. Yeah, go ahead with your
Oh,
question.
yeah, yeah. So, okay, so let's say that particular node was executing some query, okay,
Hmm.
or processing something. So, and at that during the execution, the node has failed. So, what
Yeah,
will happen to that execution? Will it be
the
again
query will
transferred
be
to the?
aborted. The query will be aborted
Oh, okay, okay. So, in case
because
of
it doesn't have the resource, right? It's a network issue, or your session may get disconnected, or what I can say is all your logins will be disabled because see, you are using your laptop, suddenly it
mm,
got restarted.
okay,
What will happen? All the work you have done is gone,
yeah,
right?
correct, correct.
Similarly, if you note whatever the thing that it is doing, if it has gone for a restart, it will completely wipe out the thing. You need to check what are the jobs that has failed, then you need to rerun them, rerun those things again. That will happen.
Okay, got it.
And one more thing,
Okay,
whenever you're taking the first restart, second restart is in our hands. Core people will tell like the node is ready and we need a restart of the system. That's what a second is going to be a planned one. Whereas the first one, where the nodes, whatever with the node is offline, when the amps and Ps are getting migrated to the other nodes in the system, that's not going to be a planned restart. It will on the system perspective, it will immediately go for a restart. It's not going to be a planned one. Then you need to look at why the system has gone for the
okay.
restart.
So
If you
when
look
the
at, yeah,
oh, okay. No, no.
the
What
system
I was
itself will go for
about to
a
ask you. So,
restart. Yeah,
okay, it is
go ahead.
not something which manual, which is not manual.
It's not manual. The
Okay,
system
okay,
itself will take the restart because it immediately need to migrate those amps and Ps, right? Otherwise, whatever be the data that is coming, it need to be accommodate on these amps and Ps, right?
correct.
Amps
Okay, okay,
in that offline node. If not, it can't able to accept the data that is coming onto it.
correct. Okay, 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 okay.
So
Got it,
that
got
is
it.
the reason. And you will not be knowing that being from, if you look it from administrator point, base administrator point of view, you will know that. He'll look at like why the system has restarted. You'll be just thinking like my job has got aborted due to all my jobs are aborted due to some network issue. So he'll be
Okay,
sending out a mail to your admin like what is the cause for this? My all my jobs are getting abandoned, right? So the
okay,
reason
okay,
is because of the system has taken a restart. So
okay,
he will check like what is the reason for the restart. Might be because of the node down situation. He can see it in the monitoring tool.
okay,
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 then they will engage Teradata core people in order to analyze the root cause for it.
okay, okay, okay,
Okay, even your administrator can't predict the root cause. It need to be done by core people if you
okay,
really need a root cause.
okay,
Is it
okay,
because of your SQL? Is it because of hardware issue or like that type of things need to be analyzed by the core people because they have some logs which they will call as crash dumps. Even the DBS can't be accessible or analyze it. They will be run with the help of some debugging tools used by the core people.
okay, okay,
They will analyze the logs. Based on that, they will give out the root cause. Is it caused because of a SQL, user filed SQL, or is it is because of some hardware issue? Okay.
okay, okay. Got it.
So that is
Yeah, got
how the clicks, why the clicks will be maintained. Okay. Clear? And one more thing is coming again back to this. So whatever be the data I was telling, like the data will be equally distributed across all the amps in the system. That was the word I told. right? So how the data is going to be distributed across the amps? Is it going to be in a random fashion? Like if I'm having 4 amps in my system and if I'm loading 1000 records, is it like the first 250 records to amp 1, the next 250 to amp 2, like that? Means it's not going to be in such a way. It will be driven by means of an algorithm. There is some predefined way how the record should be distributed across the amps in the system. There is an algorithm called row hashing algorithm that will drive the process of data distribution across the amps. If I say like the data is getting distributed uniformly across the amps in the system, there is a small terms and conditions thing here. The terms and conditions is based on the uniqueness of the data, data will be uniformly distributed across the amps in the system. So what happens if the data is not unique? Means there will be no uniform distribution. So what is that factor like which is deciding that whether it is based on uniqueness I need to distribute uniquely? Means there is an algorithm in Teradata system that will be the one that is going to drive the process of distributing the data. That algorithm is called as row hashing algorithm. If I am saying as an algorithm, if I say the algorithm means it should be accepting certain input which will give out me certain output, right? Plus, let's say plus is an operator that is proven for adding two numbers, right? It is accepting two numbers and it is giving out the sum of those two numbers in terms of an operation. Like if you see, like we have studied in academics saying that sum of other two sides is going to be the square of the other side. Like that we have seen in the theorems in mathematics, right? So you should have certain values as an input to give out certain output whenever we are calling it as an algorithm, right? So what for this row hashing algorithm, what is the input it is expecting is the question. So for every table in Teradata system, okay, for every table we create on Teradata system, it's going to have a primary index. You can see the last keyword, primary index on customer ID, right? This particular clause is going to exist, means whenever I create any of the table in Teradata system, I need to define any of the column or certain columns as a primary index. Okay. What will happen if I don't specify this? Will it error out? Means it's not going to error out. If you are not specifying or satisfying a rule, the system will have its own default rules or set of rules to follow, right? Similarly, the system will take the liberty on choosing the primary index. So what is the reason for that? Means because this, whatever with the value that you are passing to this particular column in the table, that value will be used by the row hashing algorithm in order to map that incoming record to the amps in the system. So the mapping of the incoming record to which of the amp it should be written, onto which amp it should be written, this will be decided by the row hashing algorithm, and the address is going to be derived by means of the value you are passing into the primary indexed column. Clear? The mapping, how the record will be mapped to the amp is done by row hashing algorithm based on the value in the primary index. Rajesh? Hello?
Got it. Yeah, got it. Yeah,
Okay.
hello.
So how
Hello?
it will...
Can you hear me? Yeah, got it.
Yeah,
got it.
I'm able to hear you. So how the record will be mapped to an amp, how this is going to done means it's because of row hashing algorithm. In terms of Teradata system, you need to specify the primary index explicitly for a table. Let me show you. I'm creating the same table as test 20. Okay. Not going to specify this primary index. So now I'm creating it. In the above SQL, which I have used for creating the table DDL, did I mention this clause explicitly? I have not mentioned it, right? I have removed this clause and I have executed the above DDL to create the table. But the system has executed like this internally. As I have not specified the primary index, the system has taken the liberty to choose the primary index on its own column. So even if I am not specifying the primary index, it's going to choose the primary index because the data distribution is dependent on primary index column. So what is this primary index? We might have heard of only the primary key column, right? We might generally see in traditional databases with the name called primary key. So where this primary index has come from? So what is the use of primary key then over the primary index? Why I need to use only the primary index? Why shouldn't I use primary key? What's the difference between them is the question. So when I am creating a table, let's say I'm trying to create a new table for my business purpose with some columns. Let's say I'm preparing a employee details table. So what are the columns you'll generally expect? What columns you'll generally want to have in that particular table?
Employee ID, employee name.
Okay, employee ID, employee name.
Age, date of birth.
Okay, date of joining or what salary or department number, right?
Yeah.
So out of this, why you are maintaining the employee ID? Or let's say you want to retrieve the details of the employee with the name Rajesh.
That can be.
Will you? Yeah.
There can be Rajesh with the different possible names.
There can be another person with the name Rajesh.
Yeah.
Who he is also working in your same department with the same designation.
Yeah.
Or there can be also a chance like he has also joined on the same day.
Correct.
So if I want to identify it more uniquely, you are using the employee ID.
Yeah.
And you are making it as a primary key, right?
Yeah.
So in terms of the in terms of the modeling perspective, there could be two modeling perspectives. One is the logical modeling and another thing is going to be the physical modeling. What are the things like you said, like employee ID, employee name? These are the possible columns I am expecting in my table, which I am preparing it for the business. That's what you thought of. In that case, you are just analyzing these are the columns that will fit into my table as part of my business requirement. What are the data types? Okay, leave it, you have chosen it. In order to identify the rest of the columns in the table, I need to have a column or a set of columns that will identify the record more uniquely in that particular table. This is the thing you'll think at in terms of the data modeling phase, logical modeling phase, right? Based on that, you have introduced a column called employee ID, which is going to identify the rest of all the rest of the columns in the table, right? Based on employee ID, you can able to know the name. You can also retrieve the department number of that particular employee. You can also retrieve the date of joining. Any other column information can be derived based on this particular column, right? That is how you are planning to identify the record uniquely in that particular table. That's how you'll be using the primary key column in logical data modeling phase. Whereas in terms of materializing the table on the disk, whenever it comes to creation of the table and whenever you are trying to load the data into the table, you'll be thinking in terms of the data distribution perspective. My data need to be organized in a clear fashion. In that perspective, you'll be using primary index. Primary key comes in terms of logical data modeling perspective, whereas the primary index comes in terms of physical data modeling perspective. Primary key is meant for identification of a record uniquely in terms of the logical modeling phase, whereas the primary index is meant for data distribution across the AMPs uniformly will be derived by the primary index. Clear?
Yeah, got it.
So mainly key concept is meant for logical modeling. Index concept is meant for distribution of the data. Primary index is meant for distribution of the data. It is the phenomenon that drives the data distribution. Clear? That is the reason why the system is selecting the primary index, why the system is choosing the primary index on its own if you are not defining a primary index explicitly during the table creation time. So what are the rules the system is going to consider? If we are not specifying or satisfying a particular condition, the system is taking the liberty means it's not going to take out the decision in a random way, right? It will have certain guidelines. It will have certain guidelines how to make or how to choose. If it is not satisfying any of the rules it is having in its rule book, it will have some default rule, right? It will have some default rule which it need to take or which it need to consider if any of the rules are not satisfied. So like that, what are the rules the system is going to consider in terms of the primary index? We need to know, okay? Because it's not like a random fashion, like the column, first column is customer ID, it has to choose in that particular column as the primary index. To a certain extent, it is true, but it could be a default rule. Okay? So why and how it will happen, we'll see in tomorrow's session. Okay?
Yeah.
Rajesh? Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll discuss about the primary index. Actually, in terms of primary index, earlier you might have seen this. Let me show you. You have seen the keyword like unique primary index here when I have the definition of this. Yeah. But when I have created it, now it is showing only the primary index where the unique keyword has gone. Is it going to be the same when I specify the unique keyword or without the unique keyword means? No, it's not going to be the same. If you are having the keyword unique, the index is going to be the unique primary index. If I don't have the keyword unique, it's going to be an index called non-unique primary index. So what is this unique primary index and non-unique primary index? By the name itself, you can have unique values in this. But you can think of like the primary index is going to be, primary key is going to be the one that never allows duplicates, right? But here it's not the primary key, it is the index. So what is the useful of the primary index, how it will be used for distribution, and what are the other things that were part of the primary index we'll discuss, and why we need to have non-unique primary index, what are the disadvantages or what are the side effects of or the possible side effects of non-unique primary index, we'll discuss. There is a concept called skew factor, and I have just mentioned one more thing, like what will happen if my data that is coming up is non-unique. I told you, right, there is one small star mark that the data distribution is done uniformly across the AMS based on the uniqueness of the data, right?
Yes.
What happens if the data is not unique? That is the side effect which we'll be discussing as part of the index. Okay?
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Sure. We'll meet tomorrow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So Chaitanya,
Yeah. Tell me.
yeah. So from tomorrow we'll have 7 to 9 and 4 to 5.
Yeah. Tomorrow 7 to 9 in the morning. Yeah. It is
Okay.
okay for me.
Okay. So okay. So fine. No issues. Thanks.
Okay. Evening
Yeah.
part we'll discuss. Okay.
Yeah. 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 Sure.
You'll
Done.
be moving to office at 10 o'clock.
No, I'll be starting by around 10:30, 11. I will be connected from home till 10. So
Okay.
then after 10, I'll
Are you
be
in a support
starting.
project?
No, I'm in a development job.
Then why you are going in the Saturday also here? Are you not married?
No, no, no. Saturday and Sunday I have this thing. I don't have office. 10 to 1 I have this informatica training.
Okay, okay. Not an
That is
issue.
it. So I don't have an office on Saturday, Sunday.
Okay, fine. We'll meet at 7 o'clock tomorrow. Okay?
Yeah, yeah, sure, yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.